What is the scariest thing you've ever seen while driving at night? We're almost leaping out in front of my car on a dark forest road late at night. The woman literally popped out of nowhere. Had to drift into the oncoming lane. Luckily there was no one else and painted median there. Read a police report that she ended up getting hit minutes after I drove by. She was intoxicated and running from the police. Pretty fucking creepy. I hope she's alright. I can't imagine what the driver that hit her was thinking. Had a similar thing, but it was a suicide attempt. He put his shirt over his head so he couldn't see and jumped out in front of our car. We missed him by inches, also we were young, dumb and drunk. We would have been jailed for years, I'm sure. Having someone jump in front of my car is one of my greatest fears. Anytime there's someone walking along the side of the road I get tense and watch them like a hawk. The psychological stress something like that would bring is unimaginable for me, not to mention the potential of getting in legal trouble if the law found you at any sort of fault. That happens to me except with dogs instead. I'm terrified that a dog will suddenly run out into the road in front of my car. That's why you pick up every dog you see and stuff them in your car, hit them if they aren't on the road. Car in front of me one night many moons ago hit a big white dog at around 60 miles per hour. Saw the poor thing slide several feet. They pulled over to turn around and go check on it. I've never forgotten it. Heading east just outside Flagstaff, Arizona around midnight I was in the fast lane doing about 80 miles per hour. There was a bend in the road and you could see the headlights of the westbound lanes filter in between the trees. It was funny because I thought the lights kinda looked like they were coming at me. Then they really were. I screamed obscenities and jerked the wheel just in time to let a speeding wrong-way driver fly by me in the lane I was just in. After skidding to a stop in the shoulder I called the cops to report it. Could you describe the vehicle? Yes, it was a dark blur with headlights. Wait, did they literally go through the median filled with trees? How does that even happen? No, they must have gotten onto the interstate from an off-ramp. The lights from the other direction were dim and somewhat far away as the highway was divided by about 100. When I saw the headlights coming for me I briefly thought it was from the other side of the highway, but I realized just in time that it was a collision course. Similar thing happened to me in Corpus Christi. Driving a bunch of sleeping drunk people home at 2 a.m. about to get off on my exit and this big truck comes screaming up the off-ramp. I slammed the brakes and the truck swerved, slammed into the concrete barrier, then drove off down the highway in the wrong direction. Talking to the cops was tough with a bunch of scared drunks freaking out in the back. Driving to work at 4:30 a.m. and seeing a cyclist with his head split open and brains on the road. Driving from work and almost getting clipped. That part was startling but not scary. What was scary was the look on the driver/passengers' faces when I pulled up next to them. They were high as shit. I told them to pull over just to make sure there wasn't any body contact. They ignored me and kept driving and swerving. I should have called the cops, but I had just done a 16-hour shift for a 3-day project and didn't want to fall asleep at the wheel, and needed to get home, sleep, and wake up and do it again the next day. Luckily, no body contact, but I hope they got home safe and sobered up. My friend and I were walking home at about 2 a.m. one night about 15 years ago. We see this car going in the opposite direction, clearly going way past the speed limit. As he's passing us, We see him go up on the curb and hit someone walking on the opposite sidewalk, decapitating them. This was before we had cell phones and everything was closed because it was such a tiny town. We ran as fast as we could to the nearest house, about 15 to 20 minutes away, and banged on their door until they opened it so we could call the cops. I still see it in my sleep sometimes. On I-70 in Colorado going towards Utah, pulled over at a gas station at 8 p.m. Fueling up, I noticed a couple of attractive women pumping gas. On the other side of the pump was the man in his late 40s, just staring at these young women without notice of anything else going on around him. I walk inside to go grab some food for the next few hours of driving. When I come out, I see both the younger women's car and the older man's truck are gone. I decided to hang out at the gas station for the next hour to catch a little sleep before hitting the road again. After driving for a few hours, I was speeding heavy. I pull over at yet another gas station. The young women are there getting gas and eating some food on a picnic table. Looked like they had been there for a while. I didn't see any sign or the man in the truck, but can't say I was looking very hard for it. Well, here is where it got creepy as hell. Can't say I didn't stare at them a bit. I mean, they were good-looking women. As I am watching them leave, I see in the next parking lot over some headlights turn on and it's the same man as before. He leaves when the women leave once again. Okay, that's a bit weird, but could just be a coincidence as there weren't many places to pull over. I leave a few minutes later and catch up to them. Now this guy is riding their ass with his high beams on. I decided to slow down and stay a distance behind the truck. 10 minutes or so later, the women pull over once again to most likely get this guy off their ass. With a sign of relief, the truck keeps going and I continue on my way. About 1 mile down the road, the guy just pulls off to the side of the highway. So I pull off a mile or so down the road again. Sure enough, the women drive by and the guy is still following them. At this point we are out in the middle of nowhere and too many coincidences have happened. I called the cops to alert them, and about 15 minutes the cops pulled the guy over. I could have just seen too many horror movies that started like this and overreacted, but yeah, never know. Better safe than sorry. Driving on the expressway around 2 a.m. and a semi hit a car and it went into the median. The car basically folded into itself and was beyond smashed. I can't imagine that person survived. It was incredibly sad and terrifying to see. Before my parents moved to where I am, I'd often visit my hometown up north, a 10-hour drive all on the same highway. Made that trip several times and there was almost always some tragic crash at least once during the drive. I'm not super religious, but I got in the habit of saying a prayer for them and their families. Hate seeing that. That's a long drive. It's really terrifying to see crashes like that because it really could happen to anyone. Exactly. Having my son totally changed how I view driving, even more so after I got rear-ended with him in the car. That's terrifying. I'm sorry you had to experience that. I work in child welfare, so I have to transport children sometimes. It makes me nervous every time. I used to deliver pizza, and often had deliveries right at midnight when we closed. One time, late at night, I'm driving back to the store through a small neighborhood. Up ahead I see something. It's perfectly spherical, bright/shiny thing, just hovering about 6 feet off the ground. Not moving at all. I pull up very slowly. Still doesn't move. Still can't comprehend what I'm looking at. Just this shiny hovering orb in the road at midnight. At this point my curiosity has overridden my fear. I'm the guy in the horror movie who dies first because I just gotta know. Either I die or I get a cool story, right? So I hop out of the car, and slowly walk up to it. I'm right in front of it and still can't understand what I'm seeing. So I reach out and touch it. It's a balloon. One of those foil birthday balloons with the street lights shining on it, making it look weird out of context in the middle of the night on an empty road. This is my favorite response because it feels like exactly how I would react. Yep. Had a few of these moments in my life, where it's like for a moment my brain has temporarily disconnected all memories that would place the object, and I'm left in a state of complete childlike wonder. And then my brain comes back online, and all I can do is laugh. LMAO, I can almost hear the combo disappointment/exasperation in the "it's a balloon" line. A 6-foot kangaroo standing in the middle of a pitch black road at 3 a.m. in the morning, misted by a bee's knees. My story is similar. I was driving along the highway at night and in the right-hand lane was a giant fucking moose crossing the highway. He was taller than my car and had some huge fucking antlers. That's definitely a moose, big and antlery. This guy must be a museologist. I came home late one night and was driving on a dark stretch of the highway. Suddenly a body was in front of me. I tried to swerve out of the way but it was too late. My bumper was hanging on the ground. The guy died. And I went to a nearby gas station not knowing what to do. Was 18. When the tow truck pulled my car up onto it, there were a bunch of blood and guts on the bottom. I couldn't get that image out of my head. Apparently a drunk driver with 5 DWIs had hit a guy on the motorcycle prior. For years after, I had serious depression and thought about it every night before sleep. This sounds like PTSD. I was witness to a young man who had just been struck by a minivan while he was riding a motorcycle. I was one of the first to arrive, having pulled up not even 20 seconds after it happened. He was dead. There was no doubt that there was no saving this man, the poor kid. He was only 21 and I know this because for whatever reason he's been popping up in my life. For example, the singer in my band ended up knowing the mother really well. My wife happened to have the mother as a client for her small biz and they get to talking and the mom starts telling the story about her son and my wife said my husband was there. And the mom started crying. Then I was looking for a better barber and my buddy tells me to go to this one person to get my hair cut and it turns out to be the young man's little sister. We've all become friendly since and the mom always cries when I see her. She gives great hugs. Crazy world we live in. Point is, I was pretty screwy for a while so I feel you. It helped to talk about it. It helped to heal. I remember I found the mom and sister on FB and wrote them a message that the young man did not suffer. They said it helped them to know. Did you ever find out who he was? I slammed the brakes once because I saw a deer in my peripheral vision. Upon closer inspection, it was a mounted deer head on a stick in the middle of the woods. Slammed the gas after I realized that might have been a setup by game wardens to catch illegal poachers at night. What do they do? Sit somewhere and watch, or do they usually have cameras set up? In my state they sit hidden down the road. They got these mechanical deer things that look pretty real and they try to get people to shoot them and then they get arrested for poaching, I guess. Maybe not poaching, but they'll definitely seize your firearms and give you a hefty fine for shooting from a vehicle, which I believe is illegal in every state, but I could be wrong about that. Yes, you can't shoot within 50 yards of a road, and you can't shoot out of a vehicle. Double fine.